Hi, everyone. I want to welcome you to our session. This is our makeup one since we were snowed in on our first session. So thanks for making the time to watch this. I want to welcome everyone and kind of emphasize a couple of things in this class that we want to learn together. So something I heard a long time ago in a PD session was what is said here stays here. What is learned here leaves here. So sometimes when we, as English teachers or literacy instructors, are talking about reading, we can kind of like fall into some negative thinking of other teachers say they hate reading and they tell students this. That is something that we want to keep here, but then learn how to combat that by saying, well, what did you like to read when you were a kid? Or what movies do you like to watch? Can you find a book that's similar to that? And then try to encourage your students to do the same as a way to kind of perpetrate a love of reading for those struggling readers who have trouble finding books that they enjoy. We're going to skip our would you rather, but I do want you to think about, would you rather listen to an audiobook or read a digital book or an actual hard copy? I love a good audiobook, but I also really like reading the hardcover, so I'm kind of old school. You don't have to put your full name in the chat. I'm just going to trust that you're watching it, and then you'll do the intro question and sign your name, and you'll get credit for it. So after this, you'll have your introduction meeting over and your introductory question, and maybe you can go on to cook dinner, do some laundry, and schedule your next vacation, because I think we probably all need one by now. All right, so hello, I'm Anna Waugh. I'm a former English and IB research teacher turned middle school librarian. I love all genres, but I definitely love a good thriller. So if you have any recommendations, let me know. Big fan of Ruth Ware and Lucy Foley. So anything like that, good, dark, twisty, and like they can't figure it out to the end. I want to talk about this picture, like all my love and support. I know this is a virtual class and I'll be reading all your responses. But if you definitely have questions or you need more support, please don't hesitate to email me. We can set up a call, we can set up a meet, whatever you want to talk about. I'm here for you guys during these 6 weeks. All right. So Book Love by Penny Kittle. You should have gotten your book by now. I know we had an issue with a couple people, so I've sent you some scanned chapters from my copy. But her website is a wealth of knowledge, and it is linked on here. So her website has her book recommendations, some that she's written, but some that she's also suggested, like personal books, middle grade books, YA books, elementary school books, in addition to some more professional learning books. If you want to read after that, many of them you can get from your library. Um, she's got podcast episodes she's talked about, so you can play that while you're on your way home or cleaning the house. She does a summer book club every year, so that is a fee, but you can buy your books on your own, which is what I did the last couple of years. And then you pay the fee, and then you're put into a Facebook only, like member only Facebook group. But like Penny Kittle interviews the author of each of like the 4 books for each category. So you can do elementary level, you can do middle grade level, or you can do high school level. So that's what's pretty exciting. And in the past, I think she's combined middle school and YA, since so many of those have tie-overs for like 7th and 8th grade and 9th grade. But I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed listening to her questions, reading the discussions, and like I said, you can even just do the subscription to the Facebook page, no books, and then you can get the books from your library, which is what I've done in the past when I was like, do I need to buy more books? Ignore that call. Sorry. All right. So the Summer Book Club I highly recommend. She has videos of author talks. If you're struggling to get people to come in and talk to your kids for free, maybe read a book or a short story with your kids, and then show the author talk. Always definitely watch it beforehand. Or see how many views it has. And then mentor text. So she suggests certain mentor texts so that you don't have to go on and find the PDF for copyright reasons if it's not in your textbook, as a way to further supply your kids with a great resource to say, here's a piece of writing that's great with imagery. How can we incorporate more imagery into our writing? Let's read this page, let's read this half a page, or even this paragraph. And there's more, like there's just so much more. So I highly encourage you to explore her website when you have some time. So really quickly, my experience, I read this book when I was teaching 9th grade English, and it was a double block class. It was kids coming in that 60% or fewer had passed 7th grade writing or 8th grade reading, or both. They had failed both. So that was a really hard year. This is way before COVID. And so I worked with a a reading YA group that a local author had written a book for young adults called A List of Cages. I highly recommend this book. This author, I believe, is still local, and so her author visit was pretty cheap considering. So you can try to see if you can get some books donated. I did a donor's choose to get the books donated as a class set because kids like to follow along, but you could also just get the book and read it out loud. You can see kind of my agenda back here. We always did our read aloud first. They came in, we did the first 10, 15 minutes, and they loved it. And they would be quiet, and they were really into the book. It had two male characters. One was a ninth grader, one was a senior, and they had known each other from foster care, and their lives were overlapping. And so one kid had a much harder life, and so they were ninth graders, so they appreciated that, but they also liked to look ahead at the other kid who was doing well. And then Penny Kittle talks about sharing your reading with students. So this was like Choice Words by Peter Johnson, which is another great academic book. But like I was reading a professional development book, and then I crossed them off and I moved them to my finished once I was done reading them. So some of them stayed up there for weeks if I was, if it was a collection of short stories or poetry I wanted to savor or a book I was struggling with. And then I had my up next list, so kids always knew like I'm not just going to sit there and not read when they do SSR while I'm also walking around and conferencing with them. That they also see a teacher modeling their reading and enjoy reading as they go. You can also do a Dean R list. It did not, or a Dean F list. Did not finish. Every so often, I would just put a little asterisk by something and then a little explanation of this was really slow. I got halfway through and didn't want to keep reading because definitely we as adults don't finish things. I haven't finished Netflix series because I got bored. I haven't finished movies because I've got bored. And I've given up on puzzles because they were too challenging or they had too much of a blue color, and I gave up on the sky. But just like books, like our time is valuable, and that's okay. But if they continue to add to that list, then any other list kind of push them to think, what is it that we really enjoy about reading? What is a story we want to find? And then reach out to your librarian, reach out to your fellow English teachers, and help them find that book at that level. And like, really, I know if I always have a question, what books I didn't put on here. If it was like a romance book that I looked at Goodreads and it had like a sensual scene, I didn't put that on there. But if it had like Every Day was a YA romance, I put that on there because we shouldn't be ashamed of what we're reading. I didn't put my ratings on here because that got really crazy, so I just did the plain list. But then this one you can kind of see I tried to do it by genre so they could see that I wasn't only reading comics or graphic novels. I wasn't always reading mystery or thrillers. I read a lot of thrillers, but I was trying to diversify within what I was reading. So definitely open up to your students about your experiences. If you feel like you never liked reading growing up, tell them why. I hated reading as a kid because my mom was making me read books that she read when she was a kid and they weren't relevant to me anymore or ever. So then when she took me to the library, told me to go talk to the librarian and figure it out, I brought home like 5 books that I devoured really quickly. So it really is about finding books that kids want to read and increasing their level of reading through SSR as much as possible, and not just within an English class. Like, this is her experience. She's an English teacher, but I've known kids that have read science books as groups with different subject matters for like book club circles in science, like at the end of the year, because sometimes the last unit they're like, let's get ready for next year. Well, let's review what we've learned by talking about these, and then we'll do a group project, and we can do group presentations, but they can be at our tables, and we can jump around and hear what each group has to say, and you're not making a formal presentation as a group in front of class, because those at the end of the year can get kind of tiresome and tedious. So how can we bring the love of reading into our class? And Donors Choose is a good way to get your books funded.